I am NetMoverSitan, and before Chapter 5 is upon us, there are some mini-episodes to go through. Let's go through them then. Let's start with mini-episode 4, Rooms Past the Back Door. At the end of a day's business, the routine changed little, whether it be driving the bus through a forest or sailing the bus boat across the Great Lake. Dante confirms the end of the day's business. Faust told them that they had 12 hours to spend in whatever way they saw fit. Subject to change. Dante was not the only one to enjoy the routine days. Not that they had a choice in the matter. As while they thought that they'd be sailing across the waters towards the Lobotomy Corporation branch located within District 21, U-Corp territory, sadly they couldn't leave the coastal part of the Great Lake. Not due to any damage to Mephistopheles, as that was likely repaired when they tested the non-existent submarine function, and the Mola Boatworks needed to conduct those repairs due to their carelessness. It was because of something else entirely. Faust explained that they had to wait for now. Dante theorized that it was either an entry procedure that needed completing, like the one that they did when entering the nest of District 11, or they're waiting for someone to get in touch, likely the Before team. Thankfully, the Before team are not wearing red, otherwise they might as well have a sign saying, "We're doomed to die," as we know how the last two died, don't we? Although that wouldn't explain Dante, as they're wearing red, and so far, they're still okay. Although, after fighting Chroma, they still needed HP bullets to regenerate the limbs eaten away by acid. As for their situation, they're surrounded by nothing but seemingly endless water. Long enough for them to want to punch anyone that even plays the song Sailing by Rod Stewart. Never mind singing it. Even though they chatted about inane subjects before complaining about the immense boredom, they were all exhausted from the unending onslaught of physically and emotionally draining happenings. Even considering the refraction line was one thing that helped them relieve the monotony, they knew that these comparatively leisurely days wouldn't last. This was the calm before the heavy storm that was coming. They each made the most of it, while it lasted. Yi-Sang, on the other hand, spent his time vomiting over the side, with Don Quixote, in a moment of mental stability, offering assistance. Yi-Sang telling her that he's quite alright, despite showing signs of otherwise, due to motion-based nausea, which he had a low tolerance of. And that was the most eventful part of the voyage. Dante told him that he could go back to his room as the workday was over, Yi-Sang hoping that he was free of his suffering, Dante telling him that he could rest in his room, if he wanted, and likely vomit in his toilet, as presumably there's a toilet in his room, well, along with the others. Well, they need to empty their bowels at some point. Yi-Sang believing that they have their own fair share of suffering. He couldn't seek comfort only for himself. Well, Ishmael has her suffering, just not the kind that induces vomiting. As for the others, they didn't seem to have problems, at least none that need to be dealt with anytime soon. Dante noting that he's the one with the biggest share of suffering at that moment, even though they saw where he was coming from with this. He wasn't being very reasonable with himself. Dante found it easier to help him to his room than to argue with him. Yisang thanks them as he stumbled into his room, with Don Quixote entering her room. Dante still not knowing what's in each room, only knowing that the rooms change based on who opened them. They then returned to their room. They checked the door immediately to the right of the demarcation of the corridor that they're not allowed to cross. Within it was the space that was more consistent, the doors to the mirror dungeons, the excavation dungeons, and the refraction line. On the other side of the part of the corridor nearest to the demarcation was their room. Dante noting that there's no new doors that have appeared yet. They regularly check for changes, any changes, wanting to see if there's anything worth noting, intending to report this to Faust. Then an ear-splitting siren blared all the way there from the other side of Mephistopheles, much to the irritation of the others, even though they were used to this. Faust joined Dante in observing the disturbance at the helm. She then fiddled with a few buttons and shut off the alarm. The round screen has incomprehensible, complicated-looking letters. Oh, please tell me they aren't green and cascade downwards repeatedly. Dante asking if it's a new room. Faust needing more time to decipher this. Dante understanding this. The siren comes without warning, and when it does come, the dungeons and the railways appeared. Dante informed her that they checked earlier and no activity was indicated around the refraction railway door. Faust doubted that the next line would appear so soon after line 2 appearing. It had yet to expire. Dante seeing her point. The first refraction railway surprised them when it appeared. A new door appeared with a blue glow, and when they entered it, a train was waiting for them. It gave an odd feeling as, while it resembled Mephistopheles, they'd never seen it before. Faust noting that the first encounter with the train left a strong impression. They had a violent reaction when she entered it to observe the interiors. Dante correcting her that it wasn't just them that freaked out, the others did as well. They asked what if it left the station before the rest of them got on. Well, they wanted to say this to Faust, but she walked away before they could say this. Dante asking if it wasn't that then. Faust confirming this. This volatility wasn't something that they could utilize. Faust understanding that it was too soon for a new door to appear. Faust telling them that the other doors appeared at awkward times as well, recommending that they avoid premature conclusion as new variables can present themselves at any moment. That volatility triggered an alarm in Mephistopheles' engine, which resulted in a new door appearing in an indeterminate location down the corridor, revealing a space from which one could never return, finding it best to keep track of these incidents. Dante noting that even Heathcliff knew better than to go through that kind of door again. She then was about to repeat her spiel about premature conclusion, but Dante was hinting at her to get on with it. She told them that no serious issues have been detected, so they can enjoy their remaining rest period. As she returned to her room, Dante looks at the numerous letters on the screen, along with the numbers, drawings, and symbols depicting something. It was a dizzying sight, wondering if that was how Yi-Sang felt earlier. Thankfully, only feeling vertigo, as it was impossible for them to vomit with their current head. They headed back to their room, desiring an early night. Next we have mini-episode 5, Walpurgis Night. Another day, another load of which in this case is defined as a prolonged and dreary period of waiting for something to happen. The bus boat was still floating on the Great Lake, and this period of staying in one place this long was starting to get to the damned dozen. It was small at first, but it was starting to become worse as time dragged on. Then Gregor was surprised by something. An ear-splitting siren echoing through the cabins, much louder than before. There was also flashing green lights appearing inside. Roger noting this, Heathcliff angrily asked what it was this time. What did Faust feed that bloody rickety bus? Likely whatever marine life that they lured into the grinder on the front, as they still need fuel to move the bus boats. Don Quixote saw this as a signal that they're finally going to the branch facility of Eucor. Or rather, the branch facility that's in Eucor territory. Sinclair asked if this was what they were waiting for this whole time. Virgilius said, "No!" His frown indicating that he sensed something was off, so he turned to Faust, who understood this better than he did, as this was one of the rare occasions when confusion could be sensed from him. Charon was asking if the blaring and crying meant that Mephi was sick. So Virgilius asked Faust what that was. He wasn't informed about a siren like that before. Faust wanted a correction of falsehoods before that, saying that Mephistopheles was not bloody rickety, and eating was not a part of its behaviours. Faust, have you forgotten that it's fed still living humans into the meat grinder to refuel it with enkephalin? Then she tells him that it does make infrequent use of the enkephalin supply installed in the engine for fuel, but that doesn't have any negative impact, and whatever issues may arise can be repaired after a proper disassembly. Heathcliff was annoyed by this, saying that it was just a figure of speech, asking what it was, as it sounded like the bus was about to explode. It would seem that Faust took this personally, as to label Mephistopheles as some bloody rickety bus completely disregards the amount of pain and effort dedicated to design, and Sinclair advised that if Heathcliff doesn't take this back, she's never going to stop. Heathcliff was wondering if Sinclair was taking the... Roger agreed with Sinclair on this one, telling him to take it back as the bus boat might blow up before she explains anything. Heathcliff half-heartedly said that he took back what he said earlier, and Faust then said something that has a similar level of autism as Mersault said when he described Don Quixote's cooking. I can speak from personal experience myself, as Faust couldn't comprehend what he's trying to take back. Her abstract reference to the unknown concept that he mentioned earlier was hardly clarifying. She was then about to list the specifications of screws used in Mephistopheles' construction that made her creation so impressive. First, then Heathcliff, wanting to get on with this, He shouted angrily that he took back what he said about the bus boat. It's not bloody rickety, and it doesn't eat. He's sorry about that. The cabin echoed with that. Then a brief silence happened. Faust flashed the briefest grin of satisfaction, although she didn't have long to enjoy this moment in putting Heathcliff in his place, as Virgilius was asking if the clown show was over, as that juvenile, tedious exchange was testing his patience. Clearly he didn't read the fine print of his employment contracts, specifically the part that his journey would be his very own personal hell. As for the clowns, that's too generous a term for the damned dozen, as clowns are actually capable of being funny. He certainly didn't think it was funny. Dante noticed that this alarm was different from the usual ones, asking if it's for a new door. Faust then stated that it was simple. The knight was here. Ryushu then said WDYM, or what do you mean? Then TOISYNC, or as Sinclair translated, talk or I'll snap your neck clean. Although he didn't say that last word, as Faust then decided to GOWI, or as they said in Monty Python and the Holy Grail, get on with it! She then told them that Walpurgis Knight was there. Musson took that literally, saying that Knight is not there. This is very apparent, at least from their view of the coastal area. Faust made it clear that this shouldn't be taken literally. Musson understood this much. Yisang suspected that it was a designation referring to a certain phenomenon. Who did better since the waves died down somewhat. Faust was indeed referring to that. All of them were familiar with the fact that extracting identities and EGO from mirror worlds was one of the many functions of Mephistopheles' engine. Sadly, the reach is rather limited, even as it expanded over the course of their journey. They've yet to reach mirror worlds that are too far from their own. Rutis asked if this was the Golden Bowl's doing. She noticed that there were, that Mephistopheles' engine was fishing up more and more things as their journey progressed. Faust confirmed this, broadly speaking. Dante and their collective experiences gradually expanded the range of extractions. Normally, extractions required a certain resource, but there are times when identity cards appeared out of nowhere. Asking if Dante recalled them. Oh yes, those Mola office identities appeared through an attendance check. And then there's the season passes, where identities and EGO were given after enough progression was made with it. This is the in-universe explanation of that. Dante confirmed this as some randomly popped out of the engine. Heathcliff didn't know what was being talked about. As usual. Then Honglu spoke and wondered why he still didn't know. He was jealous of the former thug. He had a talent for ignoring anything that he didn't give a about. Heathcliff threatened to smash his skull in for that. Gregor then warned them to stop as Virgilius was starting to get annoyed. They're what Dante pulls out of the engine occasionally. Rectangular objects with mirror world identities. Versions of themselves from other universes. Honglu cheerfully said that they looked like Mahjong tiles. Roger thought they looked like wafers. Yi-Sang called them identity cards as they look like cards. Heathcliff then asked if they're using them to transform into their alternative selves. He's never used them before. Dante then told him that they were the one that used them. Then Faust gave an in-universe explanation on how the selection of identities in each year works. It's done on the device issued to Dante, specifically the indentations on it through which identity cards in each year can be inserted. They're reflected when they battle their many opponents. That device sounds like something from an otaku's fever dream. Gregor then noted that was what they were using before each fight. Heathcliff was truly flabbergasted by this. However, Don Quixote noticed something was off. So Dante asked her about this. Now, Don Quixote might be a couple of shoes short of a horse, but even that lunatic can tell that something is off. As usually, Ishmael would guess in on this and tell Heathcliff that he still didn't know in her usual abrasive tone. This was just like him, and that not getting involved, in her case, was troubling. And Roger noticed that Ishmael's input into this conversation was missing as well. Heathcliff was annoyed that they brought this up. Then Virgilius told them to shut it and let's Faust get on with the rest of the conversation. Yes, specifically the rest of the conversation regarding what the green lights were. Faust then told them that extracting identities has an element of unpredictability, so it's uncertain when and if they'll appear. Heathcliff asked what she's talking about now. Yi-Sang checks that it's of her design, yet the random chance element indicates that, and Faust confirms this. Enkephalin fuels the engine. Extractions and reconstructions utilize chaos, or it uses possibilities as fuel. The range of extraction grows when they can clearly observe specific possibilities in the infinitely branching realities. During this period, Walpurgis Night, the walls of reality are much weaker. To put it into perspective, normally the extraction range, with the current golden bells in their possession, is approximately 3 years in the past or the future. So as far back as, well, since 5 months have passed since the start of Limbus Company, and then 6 months after that, well, before that, rather, was spent gathering the damned dozens since Limbus Company recruited Virgilius at the end of Leviathan, and then 6 months before that, the orphanage that the orphans that Virgilius was seeing periodically, orphans that he made after he killed their syndicate member parents. Well, that orphanage was destroyed by Tomeri with the help of Iori the Purple Tear, so I'm unsure of how much time has passed since the end of the Bosmi Corporation and the end of Library of Ruina, but I suspect that the furthest back is sometime during the construction of the Seed of Light. Well, towards the end of that, anyway. But during Walpurgis Night, the extraction range increases to 10 years, possibly more. Don Quixote asked if that means that the identities of prominent fixers from times past might be extracted. Faust said that it could happen theoretically, but each Walpurgis night is different. It won't let them reach into all possibilities. Don Quixote, then, was quite overexcited, as that might mean that they might be able to access the legendary fixer, the arch-magnificence, the one and the only, the Red Mist! Ah, I see we have a Red Mist fangirl. I can honestly see her and at least one of the others prostrating before her, chanting, "We're not worthy! We're not worthy!" Faust saw this as unlikely, but she can't completely dismiss the possibility. Nor can I. I can see that near the end of this journey to claim the golden bars, each of the damned dozen could have their own colour fixer identity. The Red Mist would be a good fit for Ishmael, as she has a similar no-nonsense attitude, much as Ryoshu would be a good fit for the Purple Tear, as like Iori, she's a Blood Knight. As for the Black Stain, definitely Heathcliff, as like Roland, he's a complete hole. The Blue Reverberation, definitely Honglu, as he has the right elegance needed for that one, much like Argadia. The Vermilion Cross, not sure. It'd be Yisang, Masson, or Sinclair, as, well, we don't know what that one was like, as when he was fought, Elena the Blood Red Mist. Yes, the Blood Red Mist, that psychotic blood fiend, gave him a horrific makeover. Yes. Although, let's note that Elena the Blood Red Mist was a minority as far as the Blood Fiends are concerned, as they'd rather do all they can to blend in, rather than be psychotic mass murderers. Faust then explained that the extended range could be defined by worlds affected by entities that were indispensable to the formation of the current state of that world, such as Lobotomy Corporation HQ before the White Nights and Dark Days incident, more than 11 years and 5 months prior. So, Don Quixote isn't wrong about colour fixers like the Red Mist being extracted. This bothered Virgilius. Perhaps he met her at some point. Dante was, of course, unaware of who the Red Mist was, or what were, well, this White Nights and Dark Days was. The Red Mist was pretty significant considering that Virgilius was visibly tense as soon as both was mentioned. Yes, both the Red Mist and the White Nights and Dark Days, and the others weren't settled too. Well, with the White Nights and Dark Days, that's understandable. That was something that resulted in more distortions appearing than before. Before, there was mostly blood fiends, vampiric distortions that predated this incident. They'd likely know where they were that week. As for the Red Mist, now Calais was a colour fixer who, well, I suspect that everything that they've heard about her was true, and they've only heard a fraction of it. It took a large amount of abnormalities, 2 claws, and an arbiter, and at that point, she was missing an arm to take her down. which is no small feat, as not many encounter a claw or an arbiter. Yes, singular, and live to speak of it. Never mind 2 claws and an arbiter. And apparently Virgilius is somewhere in between her and Roland in terms of how dangerous he is, and for all we know, they might have met sometime before the day that the Outskirts lab was attacked. He and Roland have certainly met. Virgilius then concluded this by saying that the siren was no cause for concern. Faust confirmed that it wasn't. It was a festival that arrives once in a while. Caroline then said that she was festive as well. Sinclair was asking to make sure that this wasn't what they were waiting for. Virgilius confirmed this. They'll continue to wait. Otis was disappointed, as were the others. Something happened, just not what would get them moving. Gregor asked how to stop the flashing green lights. Faust then said that it will turn off when Dante extracts something from the engine. Virgilius then told Dante to extract something to shut the alarm off. Ryushu then said WAD, or possibly what a drag, as they'll run through some more dungeons with whatever they pull anyway. Honglu saw this leisureliness as a very rare opportunity. Yi Sang said, "Blessed be the patient one," or so it is said. Some returned to their seats. Some walked outside to gaze at the great lake, which was getting tiresome. Otis then walked towards them, towards Dante, asking if they were worried. Dante wanted to know what she meant. She referred to what the mad scientist Faust said, that it's a festival that will appear from time to time, for now. Seeing that there's more to that statement, asking if she should investigate. Dante saw that Otis was right about this. Faust knew more than she was saying about this festival, but due to this being her usually cryptic manner, she's not telling unless she wants to. Dante wasn't bothered by this, and there weren't a lot of options. So they told her to put this aside for now. Otis understood and went back to her seat. Then they went extracting. So identities and EGO from farther back in time can be extracted. Well, let's review the first of these. The first one has Honglu as, well, he was in Tain's role, one of the higher-ups of the Hook office, along with Masol as Cullen and Ryushu as Naoki. Yes, they were originally a syndicate, but they were recruited by a fix office, and so, at least for a time, they decided to go legit. This was from a world where instead of the... Well, let's just say that this was from just before the part of the urban myth section of Library of Rowena. Yes, just before the Hook office went into the library. As for Faust's regret identity, this was from a world where instead of the branch facility in District 4, she was in the Botany Corporation HQ, wielding the EGO of the Forsaken Murderer, likely during or before the Seed of Light's construction. As for wafers, was Roger implying religion in District 25? Well, hard to say. But it's likely that the next thing that will be story-based is Chapter 5, and that's all Ishmael. Well, we'll certainly get through to the others eventually, but they're not the main focus right now. As for Walpurgis Night, it's the Christian feast day of Saint Walpurgia, on the night of the 30th of April and on the 1st of May. Saint Walpurgia was an 8th century abbess in what is now Germany, who apparently battled pests, rabies, and whooping cough, along with witchcraft, where prayer is made on this day to protect against it, and bonfires are lit to ward off evil spirits. Yes, fire cleanses. Although this is linked to older May Day-related festivals, May Day being the 1st of May. Like many Christian festivals that took place on days when older pagan festivals took place. I suspect that Walpurgis Night was used as a designation for the weakening of the walls of reality, allowing for what was not normally accessible, as it's something that isn't normally happening, even though it would seem like witchcraft, which this time was meant to ward off in the distant past. Any theories on why this was designated this? Please put it in the comments. Right. Next should be the Identities Law, and after that, Law on Chapter 5. Until next time, hail the rabbit!